It's my pleasure to introduce our panel tonight. First up, we have director Carolyn Cole. Ms. Cole is a writer and director with an impressive portfolio in both film and advertising. Originally from Pennsylvania, she attended the Art Center College of Design, where she earned an MFA in film. There, she wrote and directed a Clio award-winning spec spot and an award-winning short film entitled Cachet, which toured internationally, culminating in a screening at Sundance, and a distribution deal with Picture This Entertainment. Upon returning to Los Angeles, Ms. Cole completed her second award-winning short film, Tell Me Who Ruby Was, which was distributed by Adam Films' Shockwave. Ms. Cole is a director at Mimco Media Group, a feature film production company and entertainment marketing firm, which produces new media projects and special features for major studios and television networks including Disney, Warner Brothers, ABC, and CBS. In addition to her work in film and advertising, Ms. Cole has taught communications and film studies at Chapman University, Brooke College, and Cal State. Please welcome Ms. Carolyn Cole. Our next guest is the executive producer of this film, and I already told him that this is the hardest resume I've ever had to read in my life, so forgive me. Next up is the executive producer, Noam Dromi. Mr. Dromi is a media and technology executive specializing in cross-platform communication programs for corporations, brands, and entertainment companies. Now, what does that mean? I know he's important, I just don't know what that means.
He's hot.
He's hot. He currently serves as the COO of Temple Home, an architecture and design company. In his many varied careers, Mr. Dromi has served as Senior Vice President of Content Development for Mandalay Branded Entertainment, the marketing and brand consultancy founded by former Sony Pictures Chairman and CEO Peter Guber. A veteran of the entertainment business at age 15, Mr. Dromi began his Hollywood career as a production assistant on low-budget Hollywood films and has functioned in virtually every capacity on a film set, including assistant director, producer, writer, and a host of other jobs. Along with his actor-producer partner, Brad Rowe, Mr. Dromi is the co-creator and co-host of the online talk show and SAG signatory, MidTalk.com, conversations with the world's most interesting people. Please welcome my friend, Mr. Noam Dromi. Hello. Next up, we have the producer of this film, Cynthia Childs. Ms. Childs is the co-founder of Bittersweet Productions, a Los Angeles-based documentary production company. Most recently, Ms. Childs produced Crossings, a documentary about a parent's call to activism after the tragic loss of their daughter. Ms. Childs started her career as a stage manager for theatrical productions and has worked on shows at the Los Angeles Opera and for Walt Disney Theatricals. Currently a television producer, Ms. Childs was the supervising story producer for the 5th seasons of the Emmy-nominated series Project Runway and Top Chef. She has scripted for numerous shows and currently serves as supervising producer on The Real L Word, a new Showtime original series. Please welcome Ms. Cynthia Childs.
Yay,
Next up, we're very honored to have the Executive Director of the Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing Center, Mark Supper. Mr. Supper has over 20 years experience in the area of affordable housing and program development for impoverished and low-income individuals. He served as the Executive Director for Habitat for Humanity and for Foundation House Transitional Group, a facility whose mission was to transition individuals who were homeless into permanent housing. Throughout his career, Mr. Supper has collaborated with public and private entities, local governments, and community organizations. He currently sits on the National Roundtable for Gay and Lesbian Task Force, addressing the needs of LGBT elders. Mr. Supper was appointed to the Planning Committee for the California State Conference on Healthy Aging. Please welcome Mr. Mark Supper. I'm very excited our next guest was able to join us tonight. He is an actor and seniors advocate at Stanley. Mr. Stanley joined the Screen Actors Guild in 1991 and served on the Boston board for over 7 years, including terms as vice president and president. He moved to Los Angeles in 2001, where he continues to work in film and television. In 2008, Mr. Stanley created the Buddy System, designed to provide mutual companionship and shared experiences to the LGBT seniors community and younger adult generations. In this program, which launched in March of this year, senior and junior buddies foster meaningful intergenerational connections through twice-monthly visits, weekly phone conversations, and various group activities. The Los Angeles program is administered through the LA Gay and Lesbian Center in partnership with the Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing and the support and guidance of the Buddy System Advisory Board. Please welcome my friend, Mr. Ed Stanley. Guys, you can grab the microphones in front of you so everyone can hear. Before I begin, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some very special guests who have agreed to join us here this evening. Most of the LGBT seniors who are profiled in this documentary have graced us with their presence tonight. Would you join me in welcoming Nancy Valverde, Margot Straight, Arthur Aguirre, Bill Hathaway, Bill Blackby, and Andy Anderson. Thank you all so very much for being here. And I can attest that Art Aguirre is actually 43. So this is probably the most illustrious panel I've ever had the privilege of moderating, which is great. Before we begin, can I just ask each of you to talk briefly about how you got involved in turning out what proved to be an incredibly moving documentary, and what your individual role in the project was?
We need to grab
the mic, yeah, please.
I'll start. So, Cynthia had the idea for the film and invited me to participate. And I instantly said yes, I really wanted to work on the project. It was such a privilege to work with the seniors and such a wonderful journey to participate. And I'll just say I'll leave you to the story. I basically wrangled Noam into this, so that's how I got involved.
Carolyn and I, who have known each other for a number of years, sort of made a commitment when we decided that we were going to form a company together to really pursuing the kinds of projects that were not necessarily the things that you would ordinarily see. And through a story that perhaps we'll get into greater detail on later, we had, prior to having met Cynthia, we started development of a company that we launched that was going to make available gay and lesbian ringtones into the mobile marketplace. And
what is a gay or lesbian ringtone? Is that like a Judy song? Or?
No, it was Leslie Jordan and
oh, okay.
A variety of gay celebrities, gay lesbian celebrities that did. Hi, it's Chad Allen, pick up.
So it wasn't like, hello, Frisco, your phone's ringing.
We had some of those.
And some music ones.
Yeah, and I only share that by way of saying that we wanted to just pursue LGBT themes in areas that were fun and unique and meetings that, yeah. So all good things. So there you go.
I was on a rooftop in Hollywood, and I saw the construction site going up, and a friend told me what was going on there, and when I realized it was the very first of its type in the country, I was immediately curious about the people who would want to live there. So I kind of jumped in head first, and I wrangled Carolyn, who wrangled Noam, and we were pretty much off and running.
And then we wrangled Mark.
Yes.
I got a call from the three of them. I'm the executive director in Lesbian Housing, and I did receive a call, and these three amazing people talked about wanting to film this, and I have to say my first conversation, I was a little nervous about it. I was protective of our elders through this process and exactly, you know, what were they looking for here. There's a lot of people looking out art organizations with different lenses. And so when I actually sat down with the three and talked about it and what their vision was and their goal was, is, you know, there was no way that we were going to say no to this project. So I was not to be part of it.
And I wasn't involved in making the film.
We'll get to Eddie in a minute, very important. So one of the things that I found most impactful about this movie was that it communicates how far LGBT rights have come, and yet how much more there is left to accomplish. And I found myself wondering as I was watching it for the third time, you start to pick up subtle nuance that you would have. I wondered how many gay 25-year-olds were even cognizant about the gay rights movement that their LGBT predecessors went through, as recently as 20 years ago. And the movie sort of implicitly reminds the younger generation of all the walls that have been broken down by some of the trailblazers that were in this very film. And I'm wondering if you, as filmmakers, found yourself purposefully delivering that message, or did it just flow as part of the narrative?
Zeno's an interesting question. So, if I were to sit down, I'm also a writer. If I were to sit down and write the story for each of these characters, I couldn't even conceive the dialogue that these people gave us. And it was such an intimate experience to be with each of the seniors who were here. Frequently, it was myself and the camera. And so they just kept sharing. And so I think in many ways I was very aware of our history and coming through these people. We often talked about them shooting together and separately about these people paved the road for us to really come out and be a much more exposed community. Although I was at a screening not too long ago out in the Inland Empire, where someone said, "Why do we need a building like this? I mean, it's accepted to be gay in the city." And I said, let me just dispel that myth for you, because it's really not okay to be gay. Didn't we just vote down a proposition where we were allowed to get married? He said, "No, that's about who can get married." And I said, yes, it is about who can get married. So there's certainly, it was a wide target. It was something very obvious that we were going to get to and talk about. But these seniors and their stories, these individuals and their stories, just brought that out very organically. And it was something that we focused on throughout the editing process, because we ended up with 140 or 50 hours of material. And we had been shooting over the course of, well, really, literally, we shot a few shots right before we cut the movie together and finished it. So over the course of 15 to 18 months. Yeah, very close to 2 years.
Okay. The audience here tonight, obviously, we're at the Screen Actors Guild High. It's largely populated with industry professionals and honestly SAG actors, so they are just as concerned with process as they are content. So I'm wondering, as filmmakers, if you can talk about the unique challenges that you would face in putting together a documentary. As you say, you couldn't have written something like this, versus a scripted project. What special considerations, if any, did you have to address to create this final product?
I think we could say that in 3 words, that would be money. I'm sorry, I'm kidding. In fact, we didn't know how to produce this piece at first. There was just, the scope of it was such that we wondered what to do. And I think Cynthia came to it with a variety of really good ideas that gave us a lot of direction. And what we did first was go to the town hall meetings that Mark had been putting on. We met a lot of the seniors there. We interviewed a number of them and ultimately settled with these 7 in that each of them said, yes, I will do it through to the end, because a lot of people said no because they weren't sure if they could handle all that, what would be intrusion in some ways. The other thing they had to promise was that they wouldn't open these envelopes until we got there, which might not have been till the next day. So frequently, as I said earlier, there were a number of times when I would run out with a camera and shoot something. Also, I just want to acknowledge Alex Kaysen, who's here, if you want to raise your hand. She did a lot of the shooting as well. And many people just showed up and helped and did things. And shot on the spur of the moment, and other things were very organized. Like the party itself was something we knew was going to happen, so we brought multiple cameras to that. But you know, we started with a young woman who was shooting it, who provided us with some pretty bad footage, and so that was very frustrating because we had locked in some things that we couldn't get again, and then we did more shooting, and then we bought a camera, and then we got jobs and spent so that we could pay for more of the production, and we just kept going and interfacing with Mark, and the whole lottery process was a very confusing process, which I'll just take a moment, just correct me if I don't say this properly, but what you may or may not be clear is that the lottery itself isn't lottery for the whole of the building. It's a lottery for the percentage of your income that you fall into. So you're literally in a lottery for the 20% income, the 30% income, the 40%, 50, and 60%. So what happened, and I'll let Mark share more about this, was that most of the people fell in the low income range. And they couldn't fill the higher income apartments. So that was something that took time to unfold as well. So there were weeks where we did nothing.
These were one-bedrooms as well?
There's only
There are only 8 2-bedrooms and 96 1-bedrooms.
right. And I'd like Mark to pick up from there, though, because people frequently ask me questions about the lottery and so on the loan screens. But watching the entire thing unfold from a processorial point of view meant that every time we went to an event or a scene, we had to sit down and talk about the questions. We had to figure out what the point of the scene was going to be and how we were going to draw that out and what that was going to look like. And some of it was just free form. I'm here, I'm asking questions, let's keep going to the depth of your feelings and how it's all working.
Yeah, the lottery system I think is when I watch films, sometimes I go, how did we do that? The lottery system is probably one of the most complicating process to the entire moving into the building and then the project itself. To figure out how to get $25 million to actually build the building was a very easy component to it compared to the lottery system. But we had 3 kind of major components to that we had to keep in mind on this. Number one, this has never been done before. And when you ask someone to apply, you can't ask if they're LGBT. These are fair housing laws and rules and regulations. So there was no way that in that application process, number one, we were going to know if someone was LGBT or not. The laws protect everyone equally among that thing. There's only 2 requirements. There's 62, and you have income requirements to the process. So in the film, you'll notice that we sent out our first application process to everyone that was interested in it, as well as individuals who were able to pick up application during a 2-week period. We received about 850 applications through the very first phase of the process. From there, on a normal basis, and yet there we're not really asking income at that particular juncture, we're just asking, are you 62 and roughly what your income is? And I think in Bill's things, when we kind of talk about where's my social security number fall on our list and this kind of component, basically we hired an outside company that actually went to another state because we want to make sure that we found every rule and regulation because we knew that there were probably some potential right-wing organizations that may be looking at our organization and were potentially suing us for being discriminatory toward the other direction. So we actually had another company in Atlanta that we sent all the applications into it, and they took every name in there and just put it in a random order. And so we took the first 150 individuals off of that to fill 103 units. In a normal apartment complex, you will get your 103 apartments through the 150. It's a very, very typical normality of things that I've done. When we went through the process and everybody filled out their applications in there, what we discovered was, is what Cynthia was alluding to, is the fact that 90% of them were making less than $15,000 a year. And the building was set up structurally, how we do it federally, is there's X amount of units for those individuals that make $11,000 and less. You make between $11,000 and $15,000, there's a certain amount of apartments available, all the way up to around $31,000. When you're talking about a $25 million budget, the majority of the units that are available are up in the higher income to make the building financially viable. So everybody came in the low part. So when we got the original applications, the first group of individuals got their apartments immediately because we had so many individuals in low income they were going to fill up, instantly. So we had to go back out and we kept continuing to find the same scenario. We kind of knew also from our outreach who was LGBT and who was not indirectly without ever asking the question. So our goal at this particular juncture, when we got to a certain point, we only have 6 months to fill the entire building up, or else we lose the federal funding. So we were under a time span here that was very, very tight. And so at the end of the day, we found that we could fill the building with a higher income, but it wasn't necessarily what we were envisioning to move into the building. So we actually had to go out as we went out and raise additional funds to actually, a lot of us don't even know this, a lot of individuals don't hear, to raise additional funds to actually supplement at least 35% of the units in our building that should be paying the very, very high rent but are not paying the high rent. So we were really a mission-driven organization when we went through this process. There was a point for this, there was a historical point, there was a meaningful point, there was a mission point of this organization, and why we really went out and had to bring individuals. I just want to say one last thing, good question, is the last individual in the film, Carolyn, that ended up in the trail. I just want everybody to know that she did end up in the building. She was actually our last resident. Phil as well. Phil, yes, Phil. Phil also got it as well.
That's actually a very helpful explanation, because I have a whole bunch of questions about that very issue. I didn't know how you would, you must have had non-LGBT applicants, right? And you obviously can't discriminate against them, so it must have been an interesting process.
We looked at it as where we did our outreach and how we applied to it. Obviously, the name is Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing. So it helps, because if you were not feeling comfortable with that, you may not apply.
It's on the top of the application.
But it's a really nice building. It's a really nice building. If you're an elder who happens to be straight and you look at this as an opportunity to get into a safe, comfortable environment with loving people, I certainly would have, jumped at that as well.
It was the biggest concern we had that was, we lost a lot of sleep over it, is that you could build a building and we can manage the building afterwards, but if we didn't get the prospective individuals that we were looking for in the building, the mission of the organization was gone. The purpose of why we were doing this was really kind of out the window. So we were aware there was a tremendous amount of pressure to figure out how to do that. So we worked with the MCC churches. We really went grassroots. We went from organization to organization. A lot of the residents from friend to friend to friend to friend. We held a tremendous amount of town hall meetings. So we really took 2 years to build up that list for those that may potentially want to move in. And then we had a very short period of time and had some interesting places to pick up applications.
Well, let me talk to the executive producer for a minute, because I want to know about money. It's difficult enough as it is to raise funds to shoot a film. You have a great script, you can't raise the money, it's very difficult. Is it more difficult for a documentary, and how did you go about doing it for this film?
So it is definitely more difficult for documentary, and it's especially difficult for a documentary like this by virtue of the fact that when you're raising money, there's always the hope that there will be a return on an investment. But this is a film that, while certainly there are distribution opportunities, has what is potentially a more narrow field than certain other documentaries. So to answer the second question, we ultimately realized that this was going to happen through some of our own money, the goodwill of people in the community. So there were friends and family that we were able to reach out to, and then really through the combination of the three of us, we looked at every grant, every scenario that's enabled independent filmmakers to set up ways of drawing in funds, and literally just set up a website, started taking donations, and every time we knew we needed to do something new, it just became a question of how are we going to be innovative and do it. It's no different than any other kind of independent filmmaking. It just has that additional challenge. But
were there also corporate sponsors?
There were not.
There were not. So individual donations made this film.
Yes, sir.
Amazing.
We almost went to FedEx because we had that great shot.
Or U-Haul.
We thought about going to U-Haul, especially because of the lesbian element.
only on the first day. So I want to talk about, that was a joke, by the way. I want to talk about the 7 individuals that you did choose for this project, certainly culturally and ethnically diverse individuals. Can you tell us a little bit about how you chose these particular 7 people? Because, I mean, you had 150 potential candidates, right? And who were involved in the lottery, and I'm assuming you had no advance notice about who was going to get in and who isn't. And this is the same question I have about American Idol. How do they, Jane Smith comes in, and you can tell she's going to be a good singer, and suddenly you do a 3-minute montage on her, and she goes in and she gets in. I want to know how that's done.
Well, Cynthia. How do you do it on Project Women?
Well, you know, honestly, it is the same thing. It's who we connected to, who we really wanted to hear more about their stories, and who was brave enough to step up and say, yeah, we're going to put up with you and come on in. And as Carolyn said, we'll wait to open up that envelope. And yeah, it was definitely stories that we connected to and felt that it was really important to tell.
I mean, in theory, all of the people that you chose to be participants could have all not gotten in, right? It was just, it really wasn't a lottery.
We didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
We didn't know what was going to happen. And Bill and I had crossed paths through mutual friends at one point. And similarly, I vaguely knew Dawn. And we went to the meetings. Initially, we weren't filming the town hall meetings. So we had to just kind of swoop in and say, hi, you want to be in a documentary? We're making a film about this. And Nancy was kind enough to sit down with us for a few minutes. And I mean, immediately I wanted everybody to be in the film, because everyone's story that we met the first few nights that we shot private interviews, everyone was just fantastic. And I wanted to spend so much time with all of them. And the journey, as I said, was amazing, to get to know each of these individuals and to be a part of their stories. I mean, Nancy and I spent days just driving around East LA and looking at the place she grew up, which is now a UPS station, and where she was arrested and the prisons that she spent time in. The stories here are amazing. The kind of people, the seniors that really went ahead of us. So, ultimately, again, they were the people that said yes, and the ones that would stay with us the whole time. We had talked to other people. And 7 was a lucky number.
It must have been very hard for them not to open that envelope and to wait for you to arrive on campus, right?
All hearts shaking, Bill's shaking their heads.
Right.
Yes, they are. Yes, it was.
Well, it appeared as though you were granted significant access to Triangle Square. Certainly, throughout the construction project and subsequently through the lottery process and beyond. And I'm curious as to how much freedom you actually had. I mean, there were scenes where your camera was very unobtrusive. It was off to the side. And so I'm wondering, did you feel any kind of a struggle to get access at all, or was this something that they really wanted to document? She wasn't the executive director.
I know Mark thought we were crazy. I mean, Mark gave us incredible access. I mean, we literally went into his office and said, okay, we're going to talk for 15 minutes. Can you take out some time? Where are we in the process? And I mean, we did everything in a very logical way. I mean, it's a.
Did you do storyboards?
We did board it when we went to edit it. Cynthia had a great technique for that, and we set up the acts through boarding them and determining which key points we were going to choose from each person's story. Because again, we had a lot of hours on these people and amazing things to share. I mean, for every great line that's in this film, there's 5 great lines that are not in the film. And funny things, and lovely and sweet and touching things. It's just, at a certain point, you have to make a film, and you have to distill it. And to share a little bit about the editorial process, did you have a question about that? Should I wait?
I will. I will have a question about it, but go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll wait, but now I've totally forgotten what I was saying.
I was going to interrupt quickly. I think very quickly, we all learned we ended up having a very good trusting relationship. And I think when you do something like this, because they literally would sometimes just show up with a camera and pop in everywhere. But I think it worked in a sense. In the beginning, I kind of kept out of exactly who they were interviewing as far as residents, because we wanted to make sure that there was no influence on any kind of capacity. And I think I was always, the most nervous part is were any 7 of these individuals that they were spending this much time in filming were actually going to get into the building on this process. And it was hard in some sense, because sometimes I knew in advance who was getting in before they knew it in, but I would give them information. And so we really kind of allowed, I felt, a kind of freedom of what the situation was taking place, and we let them feel some things that were probably very uncomfortable for all of us, because we were going through some.
I know, and it was hard not to call Mark and pressure him to get our people in. We literally had to really trust each other and stay out of it. And before we well, we had made kind of the final cut, and I invited Mark to come look at that because I wanted to let him know that there were going to be some moments where he would cringe. Part of the lottery was frustrating. And it was frustrating for them, it was frustrating for the seniors, it was hard. And we wanted very much to share that with him, but to tell the truth of the story. So we really did work to have that trust throughout.
Well, I mean, what I personally loved about the film was that it was simple storytelling. There was no, for lack of a better word, Hollywood element to it. There was no ominous voiceover telling you how you should be feeling at that particular point in time. It's just 7 individual people with heart who are, in some cases, breaking down in front of you. It's very difficult to watch. And I'm wondering if you at any time had to sort of resist the urge to make it more, for lack of a better word, Hollywood. Or did you just, this was your vision going in?
I think some of that speaks to the editing. We had so much great material, and we really did have to structure it somehow.
But what was the editing process like for you? You had 120 hours of footage, that's a lot of...
Yeah, we started combing down the footage and picking out what the scenes were, what were the major beats, and how did we get into that, and how much information did you really need to have to follow this story. And there were a number of steps that we ultimately decided just weren't important to the ultimate result, and we did have to let them go. And then it was figuring out flow and working through beats and making it dramatic, which it was pretty easy to do given the stakes were so high for this. So yeah, it was hard though. It was a lot of trial and error and stuff went in and stuff came out and stuff.
Yes, and we built sections that didn't make it into the film. And at certain points we would have people come watch it and talk about whether or not it was working. Did you understand the lottery? Is it? But I think that in part it was a combination of all of our talents, including our editor, Susan Monroe, who is extensive history in commercial cutting, music video commercial, short films and narrative. I had worked with her a number of times before. Cynthia coming from a television background, known features, and myself doing a number of shorts. Among us, we had a great sense of storytelling. So I think that's what ultimately came out in the picture, is that though we cried intensely at times, wanting to put certain scenes in and actually really wanting to, challenging each other, let's put this one in. And we couldn't do it. There was so much heart that went into it. Ultimately, I think that unfolded into a very organic story.
I want to touch on the length of time that it took to make this project, and I like both the filmmakers and the producers, and also Mark to comment on this. We saw a little bit in the film about how all the planning came about, but certainly it was much quicker, an hour and a half. There must have been, frustrations that you encountered during the way, along the way, either in the making of the film or in the actual construction of the building. And I'm sure that at certain points you thought it was going to fall apart. And I'm wondering if you could just talk about what seems like 5 minutes in the film is actually years of planning and work. And also from a filmmaker's perspective.
Yeah, but it was many years, this entire process. Even, I love that one film, they show that building kind of coming to the sailplane coming down very quickly.
Which was Alex's shot, by the way. She went out 4 days in a row.
It's one of my favorite shots in the whole film on that. But yeah, this was an extraordinarily lengthy process. I mean, in some sense, you can kind of go back all the way into the 1970s when this concept was even come up with for individuals to really kind of look at building LGBT housing in this process. But our organization started in 2001, and that's when the year we kind of devoted the time and energy to actually find lands and start the process to actually start thinking that we could build this. The interesting part of it was that there was no model for us to look at. There was no other organization in the entire country, the United States, for us to say, this is how you did this is how you did that. So we had to, and I'm sure as you cut those things out, we're really kind of creating things of what we needed to do as we went along, I think, through this entire process, because there was no roadmap. Sometimes making history is a really messy process, and I kind of look back at it now with appreciation. At the time, you see the frustration on the resident side going through the application process, and on the other side, there was an equal frustration for us with the lawyers and the application process. And what we were very fortunate is that we also had a team, as they did a team around them, that were really devoted to this process. And one of the main individuals, Mercedes Marquez, which you'll see in the film, that was the one that said she had the seal of approval in the film. She was probably the one who was the mastermind behind this, because she went to a for-profit developer, which nobody wanted to touch. There was nobody who was going to touch the gay building, and she convinced them that they needed to be the first to do this. And so I applaud Aaron Salzar for actually taking that lead. And we're very proud to say now Mercedes was appointed by Obama now, who's a panel secretary in Housing and Urban Development. So we have someone that has really believes in what we're trying to do now, this, the third eyes in HUD. So we have really an amazing team around us that really understood the importance of this. And so we had the guidance and support to do that. But this whole process was, close to 8 years from beginning to end to kind of work through this whole process.
And we started filming in September 2006, somewhere around there, and we wrapped out in
July 2009.
The day we drove the film to the film festival that was screening next day. That happened in part because we had sent a few scenes to Outfest, and I had screened a few films at Outfest before, and we got a phone call saying, "Hey, you're in," and we were like, "Oh no." We just had a few, 90 days or something like that, so a very short window of time to cut a whole feature together. And literally the last 2 weeks we were cutting this thing. We were there 24 hours a day. And thank you to Red Car and Susan Monroe, who just sheltered the entire project. We had so much in-kind service from them. It was very, very helpful. But we were up for days and days and days. And
It's always at the end.
it was. It
Yeah,
was
it's
so
always
much.
at the
I
end.
mean, looking back, it's a lot of fun. I guess getting labor. We get this beautiful thing out of it, but the labor itself is pretty intense.
I've spoken to Noam about this. The Screen Actors Guild's LGBT committee would like to partner with MidTalk.com to do one of these screenings in New York. And it's interesting to me because when we brought it to the national committee, we had perceived it as a Hollywood event, really, because that's where we're physically located, that's where Triangle Square is. And our New York members said, "We want to screen this in New York." And it never occurred to us that these concepts would be universal. So I'm wondering if there are plans to make a Triangle Square in other areas of the country, and how that's going.
Our agency was always we started out with the viewpoint we were going to go across the country before the first one was finished, so we had big lofty goals for ourselves. We're very close to securing land right now that we're hoping to make an announcement fairly soon on a new project. So that our goal is to do at least one more in Los Angeles, and then another one throughout the state of California. We're looking also at another location potentially in another state as well. So we really want to take that. We've also been helping a lot of other nonprofit organizations across the country to kind of give our experience of what we've done to make this happen in there. Today, we're still the only one that's a low-income affordable housing for LGBTs in the country still. There's some market rates that have gone out to the market. I think there's one or two. So, as a community, as an LGBT community, we have a long way to go. We're very proud of our project, and we're very proud to be the first. But we need to pick up the pace on this whole process because there's a lot of individuals who are in a lot of need. And so these types of developments that we're really hoping that we can either help with the technical aspect behind the scenes as well as building our own buildings.
And so, did you say Northern California? You're talking San Francisco Bay
More likely Southern California.
Southern California, second.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm not a big crier, except during Lion King. But I found myself choked up when I was listening to the story of Ivy Latini. And I'm not sure why. Just this incredible amount of raw emotion coming from her that was hard to watch. And I'm wondering if you could share with us, because you're behind the lens, I'm wondering if you could share with us your personal anecdotes about what part of this film touched you the most? What part was maybe frustrating for you to watch or to film?
I had a very visceral reaction to Karen moving into the trailer home, because you didn't even understand the scope of what that place was like, because it was right on the side of the 10, and we just didn't have shots that conveyed that. And it was also next to a dumpster, and she really was trying to embrace it, but it was clearly very painful and not where she wanted to be. And I really felt like Carolyn and Susan captured that in the scene, and that was something that spoke to me the very first time I saw it.
Amazing amount of courage that she displayed during that. That was an amazing amount of courage.
Sense of humor. She had her sense of humor throughout. In fact, that was one thing we wanted to be really cognizant of, is all the humor that we got out of our friends and participants. You know, I mean, Dawn saying, I think somebody gay designed this place. Like, you can't write that stuff. That was so great. And we didn't want the film to be sad and somehow characterize our seniors as these people in need and lost. But in fact, so much of it was, I cried a lot while holding the camera. And sometimes when you see camera movement, it's because I'm just so emotional about what I'm watching, and I'm literally looking at this frame, which is the flip out of the camera screen, and them and there, and like, I want to put the camera down and go hug them. I mean, you know, there was so much, it was so, so emotional through most of it. The Karen trailer scene, when we left, and I just burst into tears. I just could barely hold my feeling, thinking of myself in that situation, thinking of my mother in that situation. It was very, very difficult. It was also really emotional to be at the party. The party was really exciting. Like, I had goosebumps all night long when they had the party, and Margot got up and shared her story, and the day we took them into their rooms, I was crying hysterically when Nancy was saying, you know, you're gonna have to shoot me out of here, like, I'm going out your feet first, you know. You were laughing and crying so much throughout the whole process. It was a lot.
For me, for the executive director, was, I think when each one was opening up the envelopes, in each one of them, and their hopes and dreams being in that envelope, and knowing that I was on the other end, knowing what that envelope was, and not being able to give everybody a unit. So from my perspective, being very involved in the building, the construction, and the residents, and you know, it's probably a selfish position to take, but every time I watch it, I just go, why could I do more, you know, to get more and more individuals into the building, and how many of them I know were probably very disappointed through the process that they couldn't get in. So for a professional person as an LGBT individual and so forth, it eats in my heart every time I see it.
I was actually affected by a moment that it was, I think, in the editing room really a challenge, because we ultimately decided that it didn't make sense to fit. But there was a moment when they were all moving in and getting their apartments, and Art had gotten the selection of his apartment, and there had been a little bit of confusion with regard to where he was getting and whether or not it would have a balcony, and what was so important to him with regards to his cat really having a place. And there was a moment where he communicated this pathos, and basically said, look, if I can't really have what my cat needs, I'm not sure that I can live here. And he was embarrassed that he didn't want to come across as feeling ungrateful or inappropriate, but it was this earnest moment where another living creature that was so important to him, that creature's comfort, his cat's comfort, mattered to him so much that he would have made that sacrifice, and I was very deeply affected by that.
Actually, I want to say one thing about that. I actually did want to dedicate this screening to Hope, his kitty, because Hope did pass on this year. And he got 2 new kittens. And I want to call them Martini and Rossi, but what are their names?
She was still naming your cats.
Yeah, Charlie and Angel.
Charlie. So I want to dedicate this screening to him.
Can I just go back to Mark for a minute? Set aside the emotion that you felt from this film. Just in your regular day-to-day life, you must have enormous highs and enormous lows. And I don't think I could do what you do, because some people get in and some people don't, and you see the face of that every day. It's not just an hour and a half on film. I wonder if you can talk about what the state of elder housing is in general, and what you see on a day-to-day basis. I think it's an important message to communicate.
Yeah, there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows as well. You know, one thing I'm very blessed is we have the most amazing team around Sheila Moore's actually in the audience as well, which we call it Angel, who's put together an amazing program and who's supported to us from Rafael Costco over here as a director of development as well, and I have balance there. But you get through the day every day in a sense because you learn so much from everybody in the building, through the good, through the fights, and through our difficulties and all the issues going through this entire process. But what we all know as a community is our right and our responsibility. That's how I was brought up, and that's how I personally feel. It's a need for me in a sense, and it's an honor for me to actually kind of ensure that I help individuals through this process, and I'm going to need it as well, and I may need it tomorrow, you never know. So for me, there's ups and lows just because you don't want to see individuals sad and see what they're going through and through the difficulties of their lives, and they still, some of them can't pay their rent, and we're having to open up a food bank because there's a lack of money in order to eat. So we're still dealing with a tremendous amount of issues. And I think one thing about the film is that I think what always kind of I find amazing about it is that when you look at it, that so many of their hopes was that if I get this place, everything else will be solved. And as a professional doing this for years, I realize that's not a reality. Just the place is not going to solve all the other issues that we need to deal with on that. But it's a starting point, and it's a point in which we can start building on those issues and creating a safe, secure environment, and start looking at food and medical issues and health and friendships and trying to create community amongst themselves and a support mechanism, and so that as they age in place and as they age and get ready for their end of their lives and so forth, that there's love and there's compassion and there's a network of support around them. So it's an honor for me to do this.
Network of support is an excellent segue into speaking to Mr. Ed Stanley. Before we start talking about the buddy system, which the reason Ed is here on this illustrious panel to talk to you tonight, there was a defining moment in my life when I moved, and I had dinner about this, and I shared it with him. When I moved from being this sort of self-centered, 20-something barfly to being the semi-adult that I am now, where you realize as an individual, hopefully you gain a level of maturity where you move to the concept that there are other needs out there other than your own. And I'm wondering if you can talk about how you became an activist, just in general, specifically to, what appears to me to be a disproportionate number of LGBT seniors who are discriminated against. How did you have an epiphany in your own life that led you to activism?
I don't know about leading me to activism, but certainly leading me to the senior community. About 15 years ago, my grandfather, who I adore, passed away about 15 years ago, and I was very fortunate to have spent a lot of time with him in the last months of his life. I was an actor in Boston at the time and had a lot of free time, so I go visit him, and there were things about myself that I learned through my time with him that I don't think I would have learned in any other way. But up until that point, I think it was about, I don't know, maybe 33 at the time or earlier. I didn't consider myself a selfless person or a very patient person at all, and yet when I was with him, I found that I was seeing sides of myself that I had never seen before. And that always stuck with me, and when I was developing the buddy system, I didn't want it to be a one-way thing where we were just, oh, let's go help the seniors. This isn't about charity. This is what we call the cycle of contribution, where everybody involved is giving. And I'm really excited, in addition for the seniors in the program, for the junior buddies, to see what's in store for them, that by applying themselves, that by contributing in this way, what they might learn for themselves, and if it was anything like what I got for myself, and then it's just it's thrilling, and it is life-changing.
Well, Ed and I went to see a friend in a play, and before we went to it was all right. Before we went to the play, we went to dinner, and he told me about the buddy system over dinner, and right away I said, what can I do? It sounded so exciting. I said, I can write your legal documents for you. I can become a buddy. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the buddy system, how it works. And I understand that the program is based primarily out of Triangle Square, right?
It's based at the Gay and Lesbian Center,
Okay.
but the main collaborators are Gay and Lesbian Elder Housing and the Center, along with the Buddy System Advisory Board, which is Sam Borelli and myself. Sam Borelli is a wonderful activist in the gay community here in LA and was so instrumental in this program coming to be. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I just had this great idea, you know, and I enlisted the community to make it happen. And what Zeno touched upon is, as an actor, I'll speak for myself, as an actor when I was trying to get my career going and hey, who can do this for me, who can do that for me, who are you? That's like trying to ride a rusty bicycle. But when I got behind a community project, all I needed to do, I didn't even have to ask people for help, all I needed to do was talk about the program and waves of support would come in. And Zeno actually was going to be a junior buddy, fractured his foot right before we started and couldn't participate. But what he's done for the Screen Actors Guild in supporting the program has been amazing, and people just want to give.
So tell us how it works.
Okay, so how it works, the senior member of the LGBT community is paired with a younger member of the community. Extensive interviews to make sure that we really understand, you know, who we're working with and who would be a good match for each other. And once the junior and senior buddies are partnered up, there's a basic structure of one phone call a week where they get together. They just get together on the phone and check in and see how each other's doing. And 2 times a month, there's an in-person visit where they'll decide what they want to do together. It could be a movie, it could be Huntington Gardens, could be coffee. And that's the basic structure in addition to quarterly gatherings. 4 times a year we get together as a group. What we found already is that while our first request was that the phone calls last, you know, maybe 10 minutes once a week, we're finding that somebody's on the phone for 3 hours. And that's by choice. These people are becoming real friends. So the program, while it was always a great idea, is really, in real life, just blown our minds as far as what it's really turning into.
So it started in May, right?
We launched in March, actually.
How's it going?
It's going really well. Yeah, it's going really well.
If someone in our illustrious audience tonight, for example, wanted to volunteer or wanted more information, how can they reach someone at the Buddy System?
You could talk to me after, and I can make sure you set up the right information, or if you want to think about it and call the Gay and Lesbian Center at a later date, just call the Senior Services Program at the Gay and Lesbian Center, and they'll know just what you're talking about and make sure you talk to the right person. I do find that one of the reasons I started the program was because as an actor, I had so much free time that, you know, with all the creative people that we have in LA and the flexible schedules and the windows of opportunity there, that it could be a really good match for this community as well.
Thank you for that. So, you know, I've had the opportunity and the great privilege to moderate many events, both for the Screen Actors Guild's LGBT committee and for the SAG Foundation. The reason I wanted to get involved in this project, and this goes to your strength as filmmakers, is that this is a story that really does need to be told on so many different levels. And it's not enough just to see it and say, wow, that's really moving. It really spurs you to become involved and become active, and that really is thanks to your efforts. And so on behalf of the LGBT committee, I want to thank you for the opportunity to help spread the word about this movement and this movie. Thank you very much.
In the midst of all of your questions, I haven't said thank you for having us.
Oh,
It's
it's
a rare
our
opportunity to
pleasure.
have a documentary at Screen Actors Guild, so
It's
I'm really
our
pleased to
pleasure.
be here. Thank you.
So one last question for all of you, and I'll let you go. Thank you very much. If you could deliver one message to not only the people in the audience here tonight, but those thousands and thousands of people who are going to see you online and want to know more about what you do, either as filmmakers or about this project in general, or even about the Buddy System, what's the one message that each of you would like to convey?
I'll start. Get connected. Get connected to the world around you. There are over 3 billion people in the world. 3 3 million of us are in LA, and yet there was so much loneliness and isolation in the world, all ages. And just get connected to the wonderful people that are all around you.
I would add to that as well, get involved. I have been quoted as saying this a number of times, but that is we still think of ourselves as young, fabulous, and wealthy. And we are from every socioeconomic group, every race, every ethnicity, we're from every background, and we're all over the world. And frequently, we only focus on our youth. And while I appreciate that for the youth, we are every age range, and I would love to see people get involved in our community and work together as a community as our letters continue to grow to the I's and the Q's and so on. I want us to work together as a community, so we get involved.
There's been such significant progress in terms of the idea of a movement and an acceptance of people, and the notion that people can be LGBT and be proud. But there's also, and we were actually just talking about a recent screening that had got, that Carolyn was talking about that there's this idea that, oh, it's all good and now we can move on to other issues, and that's just so simply not the case. So it's just a reminder that regardless of the progress, there is work that continues to need to be done, and we all have a responsibility, gay, straight, young, old, to be part of the change, to be part of that shift.
I would just challenge gay youth to find something out about their own history. And I would encourage everyone online to watch The Real Color premiering Sunday. Thank you. No, premiering Sunday at 10 p.m. on Showtime.
I reckon that kind of combination of everyone's up here is that, I think sometimes our LGBT community, and we have fought for rights, and we have been an amazing community that comes and rallies around so many things. When it came to the HIV, and it came to the Proposition 8 recently, all the way back into the the 60s and 70s. But I think there's one area that I still think we need to focus on. My personal thing is that the outlook in our community, and I think that is one area that we tend to kind of push aside. And poverty does exist in our community. Low income does exist in our community in different formats, and that we as a community need to kind of open our eyes to that and accept it. It's okay. That's what we're all here for, and that's what we as a community are here for, is to support each other through these processes.
And if I could be selfish for just a minute, I think I would say, especially after I watched this film, related to my own family, to the extent that I have any wisdom at all, it was imparted by my grandmother and my grandfather, who largely raised me in a lower working class neighborhood while my parents went to work. And something that I forgot along the way is that wisdom comes in all shapes, forms, sizes, and ages. And I learned more from those two individuals than anyone else that I've met collectively in my life. So that would be my message. So as I said, it's been an incredible honor and privilege to moderate this event and to present this very illustrious panel to you tonight. Please join me in thanking them for their time.